You are listening to the Whiskey Tango Chaos podcast.
We're all suffering thanks to my misdeeds.
Next man up mentality.
It's just like, meh.
If any alcohol will kill your brain cells, it is this one.
Rooting for Ohio State is not a hiccup.
Never leave an airman behind. You already know I need supervision.
Every time I take a sip, my soul dies a little bit more.
Hold on. Since Amanda brought it up, I didn't bring this up.
I would make them Space Force.
So we don't get another letter.
I'm security forces. I highly doubt that.
And the chaos starts now.
All right, welcome back to the Whiskey Tango Chaos podcast. I am your host, Clayton Spakes, a Master Sergeant in the United States Air Force, here with my wife, Amanda.
Yes, resident dependa.
Yep. And our two friends of the show are back with us, maybe begrudgingly. We'll explain that in a minute. Chad Holling, episode number 3 for him now, and Bryan Muehleman, episode number 2.
Welcome, guys.
Yeah, our only repeat guests.
Yeah, lucky you guys.
Yeah.
Is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know.
Tonight it's not a good thing.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure that they feel a little unlucky. So hopefully, if you're a listener of the podcast, you'll remember that I lost a bet over the game with Michigan and Ohio State. So I picked Ohio State to win, and they did not.
And I picked Michigan to win.
And they did.
They did.
And it was not close. So I was supposed to drink military special for an entire episode, which I did, but as Muehleman very eloquently pointed out in a nicely written letter to Amanda, really, I was supposed to drink military special and only military special for the entire episode. And not only was I drinking water, I was also drinking Shinerbach, which is not
Texas
military special. So I don't really know how it all worked out, but somehow I roped them into joining. Well, it started out trying to rope just you into drinking it.
Yeah.
And then I peer pressured Mule and Chad into doing this with me because, never leave an airman behind.
This is probably why they're repeat guests, because we don't have a lot of friends because you keep roping them into doing stuff like this.
And it's military special, so we may die.
We'll all go down together.
Yep.
Sinking ship.
So I can take responsibility because I wrote the letter. And I still think it's wrong that I got roped in. I think it's probably in the tier system, right? Amanda, you are semi at fault by letting him go down that treacherous road.
I suppose.
Eve. She's my Eve.
I didn't know that I had to hold him to such a high standard. You're an adult.
You already know I need supervision. That's not new.
That's true.
I still don't think you should be in this mess either, but in the hierarchy of things, probably should have helped him out, been a good wingman. I wrote the letter, but I feel really bad for Chad because all
he
I
won
did was
and still lost.
That you really let your friend down by not believing in his team, and you had no other reason because you're not a Big Ten guy, you're not an Ohio State guy, you didn't have a dog in the fight, and you still chose Ohio State over Michigan, and that must have crushed his soul as your best friend because I believe it was on the first podcast episode that you said, hey, Dibs, he's my best friend. Now nobody else can claim it. But then later on, you set him up for failure like that.
I just tried to
and
keep
now
it
he's roped into this situation.
Yeah,
he is the real victim here, to be honest.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you, Bryan. I appreciate that. I also would like some royalties from the Whiskey Tango Chaos shop since I have to deal this. And every time I take a sip, my soul dies a little bit more.
Yours and mine both.
It's so bad. It's even worse than I remember, and it wasn't even that long ago. Yeah, Chad definitely got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, there's no reason he should be on here.
He's just a good friend. He really is best friend.
He's a better friend to you than you are to him, since you picked.
Well, that was rude.
Well, you went against his team, and yet here he is,
which is kind of surprising.
In this chaos.
That's kind of surprising because I generally hate Ohio State. Having lived 13 years in Ohio, I can say unequivocally, they are the worst fans in all of college football. Most delusional most of the time.
I completely agree.
Even worse than Alabama fans, coming from an SEC guy.
You were one for a week.
Sorry.
That's true.
Technically, I don't want to say I was a fan, but I did think they would win. All right, so I'm sorry. But we do need to do a what are you drinking? Because not only are we drinking military special, we somehow managed to between the 3 households get 3 different versions of military special whiskey.
Who knew there was such a variety with this stuff?
I'm going to be honest, I didn't. I knew there was regular whiskey and bourbon, or not regular whiskey. I knew there was bourbon, and I knew there was the one that Chad has that we'll talk about, but I did not know there was the one that Mule has. So we'll go first because everybody knows what that is. It's the military special Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It tastes just as terrible as the first time. It smells awful. It tastes like, I don't even know what to describe. It like almost tastes like watered. It tastes like watered down, but it still burns. And the aftertaste is terrible. Like, it doesn't leave your mouth.
I thought this line was funny on the bottle while I was reading it earlier. It is handmade by master craftsmen using the recipe that espouses the spirit of the Revolutionary War.
I will say that something named military and this quality is considered the master of their craft 100% checks. All right. So we'll go with Chad next, since that was the other one that I knew existed.
So I'm drinking the premium military special fine blended Canadian whiskey.
Ooh.
I don't know why Canada went like Southern accent, but yeah.
So I'm assuming this
Canadian
is supposed to be
with natural flavors. I think natural is. I don't know what natural means.
Where are the natural flavors?
Jet fuel.
Yeah, jet fuel burn. I don't know.
I'm assuming it's supposed to be like the military special version of Crown, if it's Canadian.
Sure.
It probably tastes like ice hockey puck, you know?
There's that.
Yeah, I think there's some pine. I don't know.
I wonder if, because you live so far in the northern part of the United States now, if that's why you were given the Canadian whiskey.
Yeah, it's the only stuff we can import here.
Right. And, maybe you just couldn't find it because all this military special bourbon and stuff is so sought after that there just wasn't any.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the smallest bottle they have. So
is that one plastic?
Yes. Classic plastic.
See, so that must've been what I remembered if you remember from the first episode, I was surprised that ours was glass. And so that must be what I remember as an airman. We were probably, for the extra like $5, we were probably just buying the big bottle, which is plastic.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to put out there as an airman at Ramstein Air Force Base that I never bought military special. It was on the bottom shelf, and I knew better. I'm like, go at least one shelf up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I drank Southern Comfort more, which now makes my stomach hurt too. But I definitely remember doing military special, especially if we were at like house parties. There always seemed to be like at least 3 bottles of different stuff there.
Well, it's cheap. You can get like a whole.
Seagram's is the one we always ended up getting.
That one's not good either.
I also never had it as an airman.
Maybe you guys must have just had a more sophisticated friend group than I did.
Maybe.
Well, I'm security forces. I highly doubt that.
So I have the military special fine American blended whiskey. It is 80% grain neutral spirits, which just means that it was distilled over 190. It's basically Everclear, watered down to 80 proof, and then they add in 20% 3-year-old whiskey. So, it's really high quality. And that brings me to another point of this, like, just debilitating friendship that me and Chad seem to be in, because the Spakes over there have a 750 in glass.
That's
so
true.
More high-end quality stuff. And they claim it was the only thing at their store. But somehow at my store and Chad's store, all we had is 175. And now we're stuck with these big, giant plastic bottles of death.
Wait,
I would just use it.
That was the only.
It's gonna sit with me until I retire. Like, I'm not going to drink it.
I would use it as fire starter.
She could have this when she gets to be 21. She's
first
2.
drink.
Hey, that might like swear her off of liquor like altogether. If that's the first one she drinks, she's like, no, this isn't for me.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, just tell her it doesn't get any better than this.
Like, this is the best you can get.
They had the bigger bottle version at the Classics, but I just didn't think we would drink it, so I went for the smaller version, which apparently is still twist top but glass.
Well, at least you had the option.
I was in there today.
Must be nice.
I didn't realize you guys didn't even have an option.
I was in there today, and I did see the Canadian one, but I still have not seen the blended one here. I won't buy it even if I do, but I didn't see it.
You don't want to get the collection?
I literally went to the checkout aisle. I go, do you have anything smaller?
Can I get this in airplane bottle size?
Yeah.
So what's crazy is, like, I was embarrassed to buy it, And so I bought a little Turkey 101, which is a very, very good baseline bourbon, but nothing fancy. Just a 750 of that. Cost me $22. Like, it's a really good price for a really good bourbon. And that was still $7 more than a 175 of this stuff.
Speaking of,
I threw the clerk off. I walked up there with military special, my Jameson Black Barrel, and a bottle of like berry wine for Becca. So she was like, "What
is
kind of party
happening?
are you having?"
all right. So that's how we got here. So we're all suffering thanks to my misdeeds in this one team, one fight, though. What do you think, babe? This was your first military special experience, huh? So she's drinking hers over ice, which hopefully will make it better as it melts.
Yeah, I've strategically waited for the ice to melt a good bit, and it's not. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but there's no burn.
Nope.
That's because it's watered down whiskey.
So if you hear any like grunting or hacking during this podcast, that's because we're struggling through the military special.
All
probably
because of your decisions.
# friendship and # making it right. Thank you guys for coming on and suffering with me. We'll have you guys and Amanda keeping a watchful eye on me today. 1, making sure that I'm drinking at my normal pace, and 2, that there is nothing else that I'm drinking besides military special. Before we get too far in, I just want to check in with you guys. What is new? We'll start with you, Mule. How is still at Right Pat? How's Right Pat and Op Soup treating you?
It's good. So we got the shot kind of established now, and they're sort of the, like, for the military folks out there, they're like the 2-3-7 roles. So they kind of are the one-stop shop for everything in and out of the squadron. And that's taken a lot of pressure off of the Op Soup job. So it's kind of changed pretty dramatically since you left. I would say there's almost like 2 Op Soups now.
That's good to hear, because I was one of those that it's like any other thing, right? Like everybody's resistant to change, or most people are resistant to change. And so you start pitching these ideas, and I remember us talking about them like before I left, and we're like, yeah, this sounds like it could be a really good idea and like makes a lot of sense, and starting to implement it. But it's like one of those things that you just never know, because if you don't get at least like a small level of buy-in from some of your stakeholders, then like who knows, like they could like totally torpedo like a really good idea just because there's nobody like actually there to execute it and believe in it. So it's good to hear that it actually worked out.
Yeah, I think it's working really well. On the personal front, I got a baby due here in a couple weeks. So
yeah,
that's exciting.
So life is busy and chaotic, but it's pretty awesome.
Chad, what have you guys been up to? And did any of the snow melt from your front door?
So yeah, luckily, we got a crazy. I think it was. What did we get up to? It's like over 15 inches of snow.
Oof.
And then obviously with the wind blowing out here, between 30 and 50 miles per hour, basically snow, 50-mile-per-hour winds for 4 days straight. We got a lot of snow, but yes, it has gone away for the most part. I don't see anything in the near future. So that was kind of crazy. I've experienced snow before, growing up in Michigan and where I was, experienced lake effect snow, but nothing like, it was just 4 days of constant wind. It didn't break, not even at night. Like you wake up, wind, go to bed, wind. And it was, a brand new experience for us.
Yeah. The pictures y'all posted of the drifts in front of your door were wild. It was like,
yeah,
I'm not an overly tall person, but probably taller than me. Like I'm 5'9", and it felt like it was taller than me.
Yeah, well, for 4 days, I stared out my back window, and the house is behind us. I slowly watched this guy's garage door disappear until I couldn't see it anymore. Like the drift was that big.
Wow.
I remember him, like, after the snow got done. He went out there with a shovel, and I wish I would have took a picture of it. It was just him standing there with a shovel, looking at it. Basically, like, where do I even begin?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what to do.
How do I tackle this project?
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy, but it was also pretty cool. Turns out Mason hates cold.
Oh, no.
We bundled him up. We bundled both of our kids up to try to get him outside just for a little bit at a time when we were out here. And he just stood between the 2 cars in the garage and just looked out.
He's like, nope.
Not for
Why
me.
would I do that?
Yeah. Yep. Maddie
This is
loved
silly.
it until, she could handle it for about 10 minutes. So
How? So I
went out
guess
there and
since
try to shovel every day to stay on top of it.
since they're like used to snow, like how many snow days did you get? Like the base was shut
We were
down?
off. Yeah, we were off for. It started Monday evening, so we were at work, and then we were off. Tuesday to Friday, and then the
Wow.
weekend, obviously.
That's a lot of snow.
But yeah, they're just. I guess great gift to us. They're like, oh yeah, nothing's been this bad since 2013. I'm like, oh great, thank you for bringing it. Well, it was our first winter here.
Right.
I feel like
And
that
lucky
always
South
happens.
Dakota.
Like no matter when you move or where you move to, it's always the worst of whatever season you're getting ready to go into. Like, it's the worst winter. It's the worst summer. When we got here, like, it's never been this hot. Like, this is the hottest summer. And like, oh, okay, and then, every time we get
And then Christmas too, it was the same. They
Yeah.
were like, because last year it was like 80 degrees here at Christmas. And then this year, I mean, this sounds silly to talk about because it was way colder where y'all are at, but it was like that week where like temperatures just got like really cold out of nowhere. And of course, like everybody here is freaking out because they're like, oh, the pipes are going to burst, like that. Everybody's house is going to like fall apart basically. And at first I was laughing because I was like, we never had to worry about this. Like, why is everybody freaking out?
Well, I mean, they were even
until
talking
like
about-
somebody reminded me, they're like, oh, wait, it's not like that people are freaking out for no reason. It's that since it doesn't get cold here, like the building codes are different. So like all of our pipes and stuff are only buried like a foot below ground, where like in Ohio, they're buried like 4 feet or something like that, where it's like, you don't really have to worry about them busting, but here is more of a pain.
Yeah, they were talking about someone on our community's Facebook page they were asking if we should wrap our water heaters in the garage, like to insulate them. I'm like,
That feels excessive.
This feels
also,
excessive.
that water in there is hot. That's kind of the point.
That's all right. I think the same person posted a video today asking whose stray dog it was. They were trying to get it, but it wouldn't come to them and it kept growling. And she posted the video and it was a coyote.
Yep. And not a little one. It was a big one.
It was a huge coyote.
Winner.
And someone else said, like, if that's a coyote, that's a big coyote. And somebody commented like, well, we're in Texas. Everything's bigger here. Like, yeah.
Time for pour number 2 here. Pretty not excited about that.
I mean, it must be nice at least getting out of glass. Like, that is high class there.
I'd be interested to know like what other liquors come in that bottle, because there's no way that they're like manufacturing that just for this awful stuff.
I'm just getting that plastic taste off mine. I don't know about you, Chad, but
Yeah. Yep. Same.
Okay.
I feel like the alcohol should burn the plastic taste off. All right. So before we get to some of the fun stuff, we've been talking the last like few episodes a lot of quality of life issues and a lot centered around pay. There's been some more changes that have come out recently. I wanted to, while we have like more Air Force guys on the line here, wanted to get y'all's opinion.
Slow your roll, PT man.
Oh yeah, my bad. Space Force, my fault. Air and Space Force. That's one department of the Air Force. There we go. We get y'all's opinion. How do you think we're doing as a like DoD wide in terms of being competitive with civilian pay based on the changes, right? So the 4.6% pay increase, most people are getting the BAH increase, and then the that's like the needs based where you get like a special allowance. How do you guys think we're doing as a service or as a Department of Defense?
So, I mean, obviously it's a step in the right direction, especially like for location wise. And I know no one thinks Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, would be any type of hardship, but being out here and being debt free, but still living paycheck to paycheck, because of the local economy out here, and what's coming here with the B-21 and the growth that's happening. I'm very blessed to be in my situation that I'm in, because I don't know how airmen out here, like they can't live alone.
Yeah.
Like when I was coming up, I had my own place as an airman. But like that's almost impossible. I don't know what it's like down in Texas.
It's interesting, right? Because that's, sorry to interrupt you, but it's interesting because that's what, when we talk about like the BAH, like the primer on BAH, like and even an single airman's BAH is supposed to cover 95%. I believe for that rank, would be a 1-bedroom apartment, but it's still supposed to cover 95% of what it would cost to rent, including utilities, to rent a 1-bedroom apartment. And
it's not keeping up with
Texas
that.
is the same right now, where like all our airmen that got out of the dorms, they pull together. There's 4 of them that live in one apartment. But yeah, either way, it's tough. I I don't know. We talked about it a little bit. I think they're doing, like, in my eyes, it feels like they're solving it the right way. Now, will they ever get it 100% right for every person in every situation? Probably not. It's like, but they're not likely to, like, one, it's kind of like almost like unprecedented inflation, I guess. Like, it's like risen very quickly and remained at like that 8.5%, right, over the last several years. And so that's hard to keep up with in the model that we have in terms of like how they have to pass pay increases and all of that sort of stuff. It's like, it's not as easy as like snapping their fingers and just being like, okay, like it's got to be put, especially for pay, it has to be signed into like the defense budget, which over the last like decade or more, we have historically been terrible at passing a budget.
Yeah. And I think, I assume it's the same everywhere, but here, you know, any type of apartment complex or management company, you know, once we get an increase, they obviously can see that. Yeah. So it's like people get notified all the time. It's like, oh, your rent's going up $100. And it's just because we got a BAH increase.
Like, funny. So did my BAH.
Yeah, it's like unfortunate, but then like the other side of me is kind of like, well, like I get it, I guess. Like at the end of the day, they're running a business. It's like,
yeah,
it's crappy, but it is what it is. So how do y'all think they're doing do y'all agree with like kind of the changes in the way that they're attacking it, or is there something else that you would like to see?
Yeah, I think they're doing the best they can. Like you got to chip away at it. I'm sure that, you know, if we had time to like sit down and really think tank it, that there's probably better solutions out there, but at least they're trying to do something. I think it's hardest for the people that are moving in when it drops, because I don't know. It seems that they drop it a little bit like in an anticipatory kind of way, like where maybe the housing market hasn't gone all the way down, but they know they can only check on it like once a year, where like I remember in previous podcasts, you know, Clayton, you were talking about like maybe look at it quarterly or like every 6 months to help with that, like the bullwhip effect of like supply chain management, you know, where you get those big swings. And that might help.
Yeah, because with them only looking at it, say with them only looking at it once a year, you're trying to predict what the next 12 months will look like. And I don't think
they've done some of that. It's
hard to do that, no matter how, you know, we know it has a crystal ball. So it's hard to accurately predict what the next 12 months will look like. And you do the best you can.
And they've done some of that with like where they did the temporary increase for the, like, it was 22 or 24 location or military housing areas. But like my frustration with that one is that like they did it like when there was already like a major problem, right? It's like, okay, cool. Like that makes sense. Let's do it. Let's be more proactive about fixing it instead of waiting until there's like this huge issue. I also think like the flip side of it is that what we don't really talk about a ton is just like teaching like personal financial responsibility too. Like, so there's a lot of now, like as a junior airman, are you making a ton of money? It's like, no, but you also have like, you're also brand new to a career essentially, right? Like you're at kind of at the bottom of the totem pole. For most people, you have like a very like rudimentary skill level, I guess, in your like specific job, because you're still kind of learning the ins and outs of how that works. So you're probably being paid like close to adequately for like what you are doing. But I know like when I was an airman, and maybe I'm just like, it's just like self-reflection looking back on how I was, but like I was terrible with my finances compared to like what I could have been. It was like, everything was like, what is instant gratification right now? Like I want to go out to eat lunch every single day, or like every single day that I'm at work. Like, I want a new motorcycle. Like I want all this stuff. And it's the same as like, there's the stereotype, right? That like all these kids pull up to tech school and they've got their, you know, their Mustang or their Dodge Charger with like 29% interest because, you know, like predatory lending, like at all these like small car lots around the bases. But those stereotypes exist for a reason. Like it's not that it's an uncommon thing. So I think it's two part, right? It's like the Air Force or DOD can do their part, but I think we also have to somehow take a better look at like just doing more than paying lip service to like teaching financial responsibility at a personal level. Yeah.
Like it would almost be worth making like a mandatory appointment. Like, you know, you have first term airmen course, you have FTAC that you go and you learn all like, hey, these are all the things that are available to you. On top of that, caveat with like, you're going through a week-long finance course to say, like, this is how you set up a basic budget and everything like that.
Yep.
And just make it a mandatory appointment. I know it's like more time that the airman's away from their, their shop or whatnot, but I think 5 days of, and who knows what they'll take away from it, but a mandatory like financial class when they first get to their first duty station, just like FTAC.
And they may not listen, but at least you've done something. And especially for like the newer generation that are on the blended retirement system versus like the high 3, it's even more critical that they like understand kind of the long-term stuff, because like the blended retirement system is not on par with high 3 unless you do the work of investing up front. And you kind of have to start that early. Plus, like, even if you don't retire, right? Like if they're putting money into it, then they're getting more out of it, whether they decide to retire or to only stay, 6 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. I think for me, like the things I would like to see changed is like a more annual or like probably a quarterly review process for like everything, right? Pay, entitlements, BAH, like all that stuff. And then also just like more transparency with especially the big things like the BAH process. Like I still have like what is encompassed in my military housing area. Like I'd love to be able to see like the actual formula where they were pulling all of their data and all of that sort of stuff. So that, like, at least you have like a better understanding. Like it'd give you more information to make a more educated decision. Like, okay, when they develop the number for BAH, they're assuming that I'm going to live in like these areas. So maybe that influences like where I want to purchase, but more transparency is the big thing for me. The other big change that just came down, well, technically it came out like a year ago, almost, about a year ago, the Congress passed a change to parental leave for all of the DoD. So this is something that I feel like has been like an incremental change over the last probably 5 to 10 years. I think the Navy led the way with this one. If I remember right, they did this as a service about like 6 or 7 years ago. They implemented, I want to say it was this exact policy that everybody just got 12 weeks. And then the DoD came out with what was the current policy until, about a week ago. We were getting, I don't even remember what was it, 6 weeks, or it was like 40 something days.
I got 21.
Yeah, 21.
Oh, yeah. I was way off by half. I doubled it.
Well, you've been drinking a lot of military special. It's, allocated stuff.
If any alcohol will kill your brain cells, it is this one. Yeah, but the new policy is 12 weeks for everyone, whether you are like the mom or the dad, or it was an adoption, whatever the case may be. I think it's a positive step in the right a good step in the right direction, and something that's warranted, because I know for both of our kids, the amount of time that I got, like, no, I had leave and stuff, so it was fine. Like we worked it all out. But by the time I had to go back to work, like Amanda definitely still needed help. The 12 weeks would have been useful. I think there are definitely some downsides to it. But yeah, what do you guys think about the new? Well, Emil, you got to be super excited, right? 12 weeks off.
I am. So it's funny you asked that question. Like Major and I had a kind of philosophical discussion about it the other day. And as a key leader, as an ops soup, like I feel guilty taking that much time off, because
True.
I feel like there's things to do. You have a short window of opportunity to lead and develop people in this position and focus on mission. And 12 weeks is a really long time. I've had people, across the Delta say like, oh, it's your time. You got to take it. Next man up mentality. It's like, yeah, that's really great. Like it's a good opportunity for somebody else to step up. And I get that, but it's still a long time. And so like we were talking about, like, I knew a wing commander of the 21st Space Wing, and he adopted a kid. The 21st Space Wing at the time was one of those, like, and it's not all about the career, not about yourself, but you either make general out of that position or you don't. Like you get out. And it's usually a 2-year position. So like taking a quarter of a year off is a really significant time, and it's a lot of pressure to put on the rest of your team by taking that time off. So I think they did a good job that you can break it up. So that helps.
Yeah.
What I'm going to try to do, because I do feel guilty about it, and I think the biggest reason I feel guilty is because the girls are in daycare, and then the boy will be in daycare eventually, like as soon as we get a spot. And Deanna works. So like, what am I really getting the 12 weeks off for? It's like,
yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. But what I do value is the family time. And so like, we potentially could have an assignment this summer that we move. If that happens, like I have Space 200 in the summer. Maybe we go take a little chunk of leave and do some family time in Colorado. Maybe we line it up with the PCS en route. Like maybe I don't use all 12 weeks, but maybe I use 9 weeks, like a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you can do it in conjunction with like some sort of change. Take leave en route because there's never going to be a better time. Like the unit that you're going to, they've been operating without you this whole time. Like it'll be nothing different from them. And then you can break it up for like when you have help too, right? Because I know for a lot of us, like our families come out like after you have a kid or whatever. So like Amanda's mom came out. There's no real need for me to be home and to have like 3 adults there. So I could go back to work and then take a smaller chunk.
I was gonna say, like you don't know that when you have your first kid, right? Like I wanted to make sure, like, oh, I got to be there, which is like it's true. You want to be there, but you know what's your baby do? They eat and sleep, and that's all they do.
Yeah,
so I definitely felt really super useless at the beginning.
But yeah, but I think we got lucky. Becca and I got lucky just because like both of our kids being born in Ohio, our parents were 4 hours away. Not everybody has that same situation, right? So we got plenty of help when we needed it. But I think being able to take the 12 weeks and then breaking up how you want it, like the 12 weeks is yours, right? You don't have to be like, oh, once you start it, you have to take day one to the end of the 12 weeks. No, you can strategically plan it out.
I think what's hard for me personally is like the position, the 12 weeks. And then like, because I've deployed so much, like I have 22 days of user lose right now. And so like I have that to use in this same year. And like I've tried to take a Friday here, Friday there to like whittle it down. And you want to balance like that family work thing, right? And like this will be my first look at senior, and I don't expect to make it, but like I want to be competitive, right? And so like taking that big chunk of time off, at the end of the day, like it's family time now versus like pay and retirement in the long run. And so like if I can make it, I want to be competitive. And if you take that much time off, you can write a really good EPR, but you also are missing a huge chunk of time where you can still develop your own EPR and things like that. And so it's just a struggle. It'd be a lot easier if you were like not competitive for like promotion, like because you were like first or second year of like the time that you're not eligible or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like, and you can do like a non-rated period. It's like you could do a non-rated period, but it still doesn't solve the problem. It's like, okay, cool. I'm not required to come up with like EPR bullets for that period, but it's still like, how do you, especially when you're like moving up, like for a board or something like, right. So for like tech and under, if you're like testing, it's like, okay, cool. Like some of it's still in my control, like still have a reasonable chance to promote. Well, on the Air Force side, it's like, but on like when you get to the point where you're boarding, it's like, man, like so much of it is just 100% based on like what you look like on paper. And now you've taken a quarter of a year. And if that's promotion eligible year, to your point, it's going to be tough to like get to stand out on paper.
I will say it's interesting to hear you guys talk about guilt, because I think from a mom's perspective, we always have guilt. Like, oh, the kid's in daycare. Am I not spending, I'm missing moments. Like I'm there's always so much, am I spending enough time? Am I doing enough? Am I being present enough? Am I doing this? So it's interesting to hear you guys also talk about having the same type of guilt, maybe a little bit different, like, balancing the family and the work responsibilities. But, it's, I guess as a parent, you struggle with that across the board. It doesn't matter whether you're the mom or the dad or, adopting or fostering or whatever. There's always that guilt involved.
Yeah, it's trying to balance, right? It's like you have that time. And like, so if you don't take it, then you feel guilty for not being at home and helping out. But at the same time, like, we work really hard to be in the positions that we've worked to. And so it's like, you don't want to be the person that like lets people down. But I think overall, like, it's very good. And it's certainly makes us like more competitive if you're talking about just comparison to like civilian or a lot of civilian companies. Not all of them have as generous maternity policies, but it makes us like more competitive, and also puts a little action to like what the Air Force has been saying for a long time about like, you know, valuing family, right? What is it, like mission first, people always? And it's like, we've heard that a million times, but it's like policies like this that actually like get after it and may have like some effect on like some of the other issues that we see, like your like suicide and mental health and like all that stuff. It's like, okay, like this is maybe like one time where I can take some of the stressors away. Yeah.
Especially for being a mom. Cause I think, well, with both of our kids, I had to use I had to use PTO time and short-term disability in order to take any sort of leave. And I think with our second, I was only able to take 4 weeks off. With our first, I was able to take 6 or 8 weeks off. And by the time I was actually, I mean, newborns are crazy. Like by the time you actually are able to figure out how to communicate with them, like all of a sudden now I have to go back to work. And so then I'm sitting at work trying to juggle everything of being a new mom. And it's just, it's a lot of pressure because you want to perform well at your job. And then also you've got a newborn that you're also trying to figure out as well. So as far as like the postpartum that comes along with all that stuff too, if you're able to, you know, these 12 weeks might help get after it a little bit and maybe help with the whole mental health aspect of it as well. So I think good on them.
Yeah. I think
I don't get that as a contractor.
I think it's also good that it takes a stigma away of like people that do have to have like the father, which is not a typical path, be the primary caregiver. Cause I don't remember, it might've been you, Spakes. Somebody in the squadron when I was like first there, like tried to push being the primary caregiver as a father. And like, I don't think anybody did it maliciously, but there was like some flack kind of like, oh, why are they doing that?
It was him.
I had to prove it.
Because I thought it was you. Yeah, it was him because I didn't get any, I was so new at my job. I didn't get any maternity leave. Like even the little bit that they already had as a policy, I hadn't been with the company 6 months, so I didn't even qualify for it. So the only thing I qualified was for short-term disability. So I was only able to be home for 4 weeks. And then I had to go right back to work. Like I didn't have my appointment with my doctor yet to get the all clear. And I was already back to work.
I was fortunate that like
didn't have care at all. So
I was fortunate that like my specific example was called out in what was the new policy for like instances of why the father would be considered the primary caregiver. But the important piece of that policy at the time was that your command was not supposed to have any influence or any say in who was labeled the primary caregiver. Amanda could have had like 100 weeks of maternity leave given by her company, and we could have made the decision to designate myself the primary caregiver, and the unit was not supposed to have like any say in that. They were essentially just supposed to approve it. And at the time they didn't.
But like, I've seen it twice now, like your case and another case that like they gave flack to the person that, you know, was trying to do that. And so like, I'm glad that they've made this call where it's like 12 weeks across the board.
Yeah.
Like
it makes it easier.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
When Waylon was born, I actually read the policy. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like I can designate myself primary. And we had like some other stuff going on. Like I already knew before Waylon was born that when he was like 2 months old, I was going to be deploying. So there were like other factors where I was like, yeah, like this is the hill I'm willing to die on because I already know I'm going to be missing like essentially the first like year of his life. Right. I don't think it wasn't anything malicious by like our command at the time. I think it was just that the policy was like new-ish. And at that time it was still like relatively rare for the dad to be the one that's saying they were the primary caregiver. So I got like some pushback and had to like essentially use the AFI to back it up and prove myself, which is fine. That's kind of what it's there for, really. Like, but I think like the positive that came out of that, like after I went through that, and it wasn't like this big traumatic event. It was just like there was more conversations other than just like the request. I think the good thing that came out of that though is I knew a lot of people in our squadron that took primary caregiver after that, like guys that took primary caregiver after that. And I don't recall any of them like saying that they got any flack or had any issue, like having to prove anything. So I think honestly, like it wasn't anything malicious. It was just like everybody trying to learn what the norms were for that policy. And then once it all got figured out, it was fine.
Yeah. Making it blanket though, so there's no questions.
Way better. Yeah, way better. Also, military special update. Amanda has officially gone to the cabinet for the Tums.
Yes. I stood up and I instantly got heartburn from this crap I'm drinking.
You're welcome.
So don't you only have to have one cup? I mean, Chad and I
that was the original deal, was that that you guys only had to have a glass.
I mean, I'm still rocking the neat. I'm doing it.
Oh, yeah, I'm on like glass number 3 or 4. I think at this point, like, I don't know why, because it's only 80 proof, but like, I definitely feel buzzed faster with this for some reason.
It's
because it's melting you from the inside.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
All right. So we'll move on from Air Force or, quality of life issues. And we posted in our post, if you follow us at Whiskey Tango Chaos on all social medias, from time to time, we'll ask specifically for questions, but you can always drop your questions in any of our posts and we will do our best to get to them in the podcast.
Absolutely.
We feel like while we have a few extra opinions on the podcast tonight, it'd be a good time to get to some of those questions. But the first question, since this is partially a whiskey podcast, and we'll start with Mule. What is your most overrated and most underrated whiskey?
So overrated, I think Weller Special Reserve. It's not even expensive. It's like $22 here in
it's really
Ohio.
Sweet.
But people pay $100 for this stuff, and it's just a very basic. I mean, it's a screw top whiskey. It wasn't intended to be anything.
People pay $100 for that. You can get that everywhere. I should buy a case of it and sell it online.
So
$100.
Texas and Ohio are the two places that you can find, Weller Special Reserve, like pretty much on the regular. But it's just something that like I've had it at Buffalo Trace and it's good. It's just not great.
It's sweet for my taste. Like, to me, it would make a good mixer for like, I don't know, like an old fashioned or something that's like already going to have maybe some simple syrup in it. That's like kind of lends itself to being like a little bit sweet. But yeah, I agree with you. A little overrated.
I go the other way. I think ryes make really good old fashions where it's like that spice with the sweetness make really good.
I can see that.
So the most underrated would be Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. And I say it's underrated because usually on the bottom shelf, it's $17. And I don't want to spend an astronomical amount. Like I like the 40, 60 bottles. Those are my specialty bottles. I wouldn't say that the EW Bottled in Bond has like incredible depth, but it has all the caramels and vanillas and all those great flavors that you want in a bourbon. Like it's just a very standard bourbon. Just really good.
All right, Chad, you're up. Most overrated and underrated whiskey.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm the best for this question, mainly because I don't travel outside of my Jameson family that often.
Which one's your favorite?
Jameson Black Barrel.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that one's good.
So Jameson Black Label is your like favorite whiskey. Do you have any that you've had that you're just like, no, that was not worth it?
Yeah, this military special.
Even at $17 for a handle, still not worth it. That's impressive.
Brother, we paid $13.
Oh, my bad.
For more than a handle.
Hey.
But yeah, this $13 for a handle is not worth it.
All right, old lady, your turn.
Several episodes ago, we did a price tier. So we tested a low end bottle, a mid grade bottle, and a high end bottle. So at the $250 price point was the
barrel.
That's just called the barrel.
I'd have to go get the bottle to tell you which one because they actually make a lot of variations, but it was I think it was just called barrel bourbon.
I think it was just called barrel bourbon.
But it was their 15-year.
Okay, so my most overrated pick is the Barrel Craft Spirit Bourbon, the 15-year bottle. I think we paid like $120 for that.
Barrel? No, it was like $200.
I'm sorry. Yeah, $220. I think is what I was. Anyway, it wasn't good. Like it wasn't good. Okay, I didn't think it was good. I've had better, smoother bourbons at a much lower price point. Also, in my brain, what will make up for that a little bit is if like the bottle's really cool and the bottle sucked. Like the bottle is so nondescript. Like it's just like meh, but it's like anyway. So that for me is my most overrated bourbon.
I will hold on before you get to your most underrated.
He raised his hand.
Oh, sorry.
Is that water in your
Yeah.
hand?
Clayton, did you just get a sip of water out of the?
I didn't. I literally straight to the door. I will not make that mistake again.
No, he went straight to the door, let the dog in, came right back.
Yeah, I will say, so that barrel bourbon, it was good. Like it was really, really smooth. See, that's how you know I haven't had anything else because I kind of want to puke. But I'm just kidding. I'm not going to throw up. But that,
I hope you do. No, just pause for a second.
So you deserve it.
You do.
No, so that the barrel bourbon, like it was good. It was like a 15-year. It was really smooth, but I think it was just like I think that maybe like $200 whiskey is kind of just lost on me. Like there's not. I don't have a good enough palate.
So great about it. Like if
although I do really want
$200, make the bottle look cool. The bottle looked.
Yeah.
The bottle sucked. The bottle sucked. The design sucked. The whiskey sucked.
So overrated, underrated. You didn't say you're underrated.
Going from the same podcast just because I saw the picture and it's on top of mine. The Sexton that I tried, it's only a $30 bottle of bourbon. It was really good.
You're trying to have what?
Stop. Anyway.
No, Sexton. It was an Irish whiskey. It was also a cool bottle.
The bottle was cool. It was Irish whiskey.
And it was cheap, right? It was like $30.
$30. Yeah. The bottle was cool. The elixir was smooth and delicious and had good flavor to it.
That was another one.
Also, it was only like $30. So
that was another one from Alamo City.
I just happened to pick it up because I thought the bottle was cool, and then I looked at it and it had decent reviews, and so we tried it, and I was actually extremely impressed.
And the owner told us it was good, yes. And so that the owner of Alamo City is like obviously he does like the barrel picks, and I have found out that I'm like pretty fortunate that the liquor store that I like going to here, Alamo City.
What's that name again?
Alamo City.
Have you guys ran into a store called Alamo City yet?
No, but their owner like apparently has like a very similar, definitely more sophisticated, but similar palate to like us in terms of what we like. Because anything we've ever had that's a barrel pick from them, like to the point that now, like if we go in the store, like I look for, like the heavy hitters in the bourbon aisle, but then I go straight to where their handpicked stuff is and try to find something like I'll find something reasonably priced and then I'll grab it because I know that like anything that he says is good meshes well with our like what we like. And the Sexton was the same. We've talked about this before. My most overrated is Blanton's. Like I think we talked about this when you were on last time, Mule, right? Like at MSRP, it's very good. Like I would say like kind of tough to beat. Like at, what is it? MSRP is like 60-ish.
Yeah.
Like, so if you can get it at MSRP for the regular Blanton's, not like the single barrel or any of that craziness, like it's okay, but still overrated. I think it's more of a status symbol than anything. Like it's a very recognizable bottle. Their marketing is fantastic. But that's my most overrated bottle. My most underrated, and I guess so you introduced us to the Benchmark Foolproof. That's a really good one that is, I think, very underrated. I think for allocated bottles, for me, Buffalo Trace at MSRP is underrated, which may sound a little silly because people know Buffalo Trace and they like people try like seek it out, and it's still one of those, like if you see it on the shelf, a lot of people will buy it, but it's cheap. It's on the cheaper end of the scale, and people a lot of times still will dismiss it in terms of allocated bottles. It gets like dismissed as like a lower tier, right? Like that it doesn't matter. That was my overrated, underrated. So our good friend, Chad Holling, who is here with us today, who is my best friend.
The Michigan fan.
Is he your best friend or is he my best friend? Because, I mean, clearly.
Mine, listen, what relationship doesn't have hiccups? If you're not hurting, you're not growing. That's what.
Rooting for Ohio State is not a hiccup.
Hey, listen. Everybody has growth moments.
Can't reach this knife in my back, Clayton.
Everybody has moments of growth, right? I didn't want to get complacent. I tried to mix it up. It's like spicing it up in the relationship. Me choosing Ohio State was the equivalent of me putting lingerie on for this relationship.
Oh, is it?
Oh, there's no
Chad,
lube. There's no lube.
jalapeno right in your eye.
You know, it's the
Clayton's over here telling me to bite the pillow. I'm going in dry.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no lube.
the relationship equivalent of a stray finger. It's hey yo. No. So your question though was if we could change one thing in the Air Force, like with the step of the finger today, what would we do? Put Mule on the spot first. What would you do?
Change the Air Force. I would make them a Space Force.
Oh, you're fully in, aren't you?
I mean,
Of
I'm all
course
in
that's
on
your
no
answer, you
PT
fucking
tests.
guardian.
And we both have
Uh,
shitty promotion rates, so it seems fair.
I think what I would do is I would try to do whatever I could for both the Air Force and the Space Force to mimic the outside community in order to retain talent and not just regular talent, but like the talent that everybody matters, right? But there is a delineation between good talent and bad talent. And I'll give you an example. For the Space Force, we have 3,400 enlisted, right?
Were you
So
about
if
to
you
call me the
lose-
bad talent?
I'm just saying that you root for the wrong people.
Hey, the shoe fits.
So there's, it's not me, but there's a 12-year master sergeant that's getting out of the Space Force because of family and they don't want to move. And I get that. And I'll never fault anybody for family. But when they get out, that's a huge blow to the Space Force. In addition, I've heard rumors that like half of our airmen or guardians don't want to stay in because they don't get to do the analysis that they want to do. And so as the ops soup, that really hurts, right? How do I gainfully employ them when like the national agencies look at the military service members as the collection monkeys for the whole wheel, and make them feel valued, but also grow them professionally without everybody has their pros and cons for staying in or getting out, but all of the Space Force and a lot of the Air Force have career fields that are very easily gainfully employed on the outside. And I have friends that got out, right? We know our buddy Mac, right? And he's very happy. He's told me before that he will have a very stiff drink on his 20-year mark when he doesn't get a retirement. And he'll move on with his day because he's very happy and healthy and all that stuff, right?
He'll have probably made it up.
He will. And, you know, it all comes out in the wash. But at the same time, how do we maintain a competitive advantage against our adversary to answer the national defense strategy that's laid in front of us?
I feel really similarly. The flight that I'm in charge of now, they're all 1D7 Zulus, so they're programmers. And so that's a huge problem that I face is that by the time these guys get like their Air Force level training, they can do like 4 years. They can make like really good money on the outside. Of course, a lot of that is dependent on their experience and like what they've been able to do with the units that they are in. It's tough. It's like, how do we match the industry equivalent? And to me, what ends up happening is the people that we keep in that career field are like, truthfully, the people we don't want, right? The people that stay are the people that don't have other options. Like, cause you're like Air Force, like DOD's never going to keep up with industry pay wise.
I think all three of us are doing kind of the same thing. It's like, could we aspire to more on the outside of things and make more money potentially and work for these companies that will actually appreciate us besides the military? Yes, we could. But I think in the long run, like we'll eventually get to that point where we work for a company that really appreciates our talents. But like we're doing this because we're going to get a military retirement and pension and medical benefits for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like I could not agree with you more. And that's why I have no intention of getting out. But it is difficult when you don't feel valued, right? And I don't know how it's going to all turn out, right? The writing on the wall is that it is very competitive and it's hard when you're trying to take care of your family at the end of the day, right?
Where I think the Air Force could do better is when they talk about talent management, it's not necessarily just getting people who perform really well into positions where they can excel and they're not stagnated. It's also getting people who don't perform out. Like,
yes,
how do we find a way to get the people that are staying in because they don't have, or that are in because they don't have better options? How do we find a way to get to force those guys out? Right. So is that, are we more stringent with reenlistments? Are we like, I don't really know what the solution is. Like, I will say in the time that I've been a senior NCO, which is not that long,
coming up on a year, bro,
is like, but I will say easily 33% should not be in the military. They're there because like it's the best option for them, and they probably understand that, right? Like they are not the most technically proficient. They are not the most proficient leaders, but the Air Force or Space Force has passed them on and passed them on. They end up getting promoted, and then here we are.
Well, you would think that would help with talent retention a little bit as well, because if you're a new person, you're
100%.
coming in and you're seeing people that are above you that you know that you can outperform and that you do outperform, and yet you see them getting promoted and, you know, getting all these opportunities. You're like, well, what the heck? Like, why would I stay in? I don't feel valued. The people that are clearly valued can't or won't do their job. So what's the point in me even staying? You do your 4 years, you get out.
But that goes back to some of the stuff we were talking about before, where it's like, is that and even in the last podcast was like, is that a systemic DOD issue? Or is that like, we're not doing our part as like frontline supervisors and flight chiefs? But like, how do I get a person out that's performing?
Well,
they're adequate.
Well, here's the thing, man. I think about this from a security forces aspect, right? Like there are people that they come, they do their job. They're not anything spectacular or anything like that, but we need those people. Like we need those people to be at the gate, checking IDs, because like my career field is so vast. It's one of the biggest career fields in the Air Force. Like we need like quantity over quality at certain aspects. Because like, okay, this person, he shows up every day. He doesn't do anything spectacular, but he checks those IDs, and we need people to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but unfortunately there's high speed people that want to do good. And they're like, hey, I've done all this stuff, like promote me. And they don't get promoted. So they get out. But then there's these people that like, oh dude, I just want to check IDs. That's all I want to do for 12 hours. But they stay in long enough where they become those senior NCOs. Right. And then eventually they're seniors and chiefs, like leading squadrons. And it's like, yo, this guy like doesn't really, one, he may not know what he's doing, or two, like he doesn't have the drive to make things better.
Yeah.
He's just there.
So to get back to like Chad's question, right? So our big Air Force thing that we could change, is it like, you don't have to have the specific answer, but do we fix promotions or do we fix quality of life? Like where should the DOD place their money? Right. So
not in the commissary.
Hashtag defund the fucking commissary.
Hashtag defund the commissary.
Do you guys hold on? Since Amanda brought it up, I didn't bring this up. Are you like, this feels like a great fucking idea. Like I've never had a good idea in my life, but this feels like one.
I had a full conversation with my office about defunding the commissary when you brought that up. I'm 100% on board. Yes, send me the shirt. I'll wear it.
How much does that?
On board.
Like how much
I'll
does the
send you the
commissary
shirt.
cost? The only thing I've ever found in the commissary is a disgruntled retiree. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like we could do a lot with that money. But maybe that's how we frame this. So we bring it back in.
Not very often, Clayton, that I'm 100% on board with your stances. I'm 100% on board with your stance.
Hey, that's why we're best friends, really.
It's not for football, that's for sure.
No, it's like, so, all right.
Yeah, Mr. Ohio State.
So I love hashtag defund the commissary. If you go to whiskeytangochaos.com/store, you can find your hashtag defund the commissary shirt. One will be on Chad and Mule's doorstep, courtesy of us for the military special that they drank tonight. But if you had a big goal, do you think where are we missing the mark? Right? Is it? So, I mean, I know it's a combination, but is it pay? Is it quality of life? Is it job fulfillment? Where are we missing the mark?
I think for our career field, and this is based off a lot of feedback I've gotten recently from our ops floor, it is job satisfaction. And the problem is more systemic than just the Space Force, just the Air Force. But if we don't intertwine growing our professionals to be experts in the field, we are going to lose so many quality people because both the Space Force and the Air Force rely on contractors to be the warrant officers of the service, and that is a detriment to our guardians, and it's a detriment to our airmen. And I'm just really happy that you're making that face right now.
I tried to kill the last of a glass I could.
Oh yeah, you gotta wash your mouth out with water, bud.
I'm too dumb. I'm real dumb. So
Amanda, can you get him some water, please?
No. I'm real dumb, so it's I get to the end of the glass and I'm I want to kill that. And then...
Hey, Amanda, can you go get him a beer real quick?
Amanda, I thought you were the beer wench. Can you get him a beer?
All right, so, Chad, what you got for us?
Yeah, one's to piggyback off of Bryan, but the first thing I would change, coming from a guy that cannot grow facial hair at all, men get to grow beards. If you can have a professional-looking beard, men get to grow facial hair. To piggyback off of Bryan... I think we need to have some type of talent management, not only in your guys' career field, but across the board.
But not just lip service.
Exactly. If you're very good at your job, and like I said, I've been blessed with opportunity within the security forces career field, to work different jobs. If you're a motivated person and want to move forward, that needs to be identified somehow, because there's so many people that they say that I want to do this, I want to do good, I want to do something different, and maybe outside of the box type thinking. Like I said, the opportunities that I have been outside of the box. I haven't been normal security forces in almost a decade. If those people,
hey bro, you want to check my ID?
I just want you to stay warm.
Hey, stay warm, Defender.
God, I fucking hate you both. So some type of talent management, where if someone is identified that, hey, this person is doing big things and we need to try to retain him, whether it's put him into a position that's doing something different, or maybe giving him or her a bonus because of what they're doing. Like I said, I don't know how to get there, but I think if these people, we have such a retention problem in all of the AFSCs in the Space Force and or Air Force. People need to be identified hey, these people are smeezing what they do, and it's worth trying to keep them in before we lose them to industry and or outside work.
Hey, I think we all agree. I wish I had a differing opinion to make the podcast interesting, but I think we're all the same. The way I would look at this is I want omnidirectional talent management. How do I get my fast burners through? But how do I get my slow burners out? That's what I would change. And in fairness, this would maybe kick me out, right? I would, there's a 90% chance that I'd be a slow burner and I would have had to find another job 5 or 10 years ago. But I think those changes, even if it meant that I didn't retire in the military, would make the service better. The product that we have now rewards the person that does the minimum to fly under the radar and then get their pension or get their blended retirement thing, right? How do we keep the people in that we want to keep in, but how do we avoid keeping people in that do not have the skill sets that we want? How do we force them out outside of them being a disciplinary problem? Like, how do you have a 360 performance evaluation where you're like, hey, you don't suck. You're not a bad person, but you just don't do what we need you to do.
So my only counter to that is, how do you develop that individual that is not programming savvy into being a good leader? Because at a certain point, you don't have to be a programmer. You have to be a leader. And so it's okay if they stay in, but how do we turn them from being a slow performer to being a good leader that can lead programmers into the next generation?
It goes back to a few years ago when they were talking about having basically different branches you can go off. If you identify yourself as like, I want to be at the tactical level for the rest of my career. I'm not going to make rank, and I want to be the tactician working at this level. I don't want to manage people. I don't want to lead people. I want to be at this level, which was talked about, but I don't think really ever came to fruition. People basically identifying themselves as, I just want to do the job. I don't want to make rank. I don't want to lead people. I want to do the job. And if I retire as a tech and or master, I'm good. But then you have another branch that you can go off of, I want to work my way through the tactical level up into basically being a chief. And I eventually want to get there. So you have different, boxes you have to check, to get there. I don't think it ever really came to fruition. But I think if you identify yourself as like, hey, like I'm a hard worker. I want to do what I want to do, but I want to stay at this level. I don't want to go above that. I don't want to progress above the tactical level. And I don't want to lead people to the strategic level. They're like, okay, cool, go do that. That we need those people.
Yeah.
But then there's people that identify themselves like, yo, I want more. And I want to learn everything I can in the tactical level and get into managerial and strategic level. But like I said, it was a discussion that happened that I don't ever think really came to fruition.
The whole thing doesn't seem like it's not a black and white issue. It's going to be a lot of the gray area where you got to take it on a case by case basis, which I think is probably why it's a kind of a hard conversation to have, because it's very individualized.
At a certain point, like, nobody cares how blue you are. Like, how good are you at being a cyber professional? And if you're not good at being a cyber professional, like, be good at being a leader. Be good at being somebody that can manage and develop the talent. Because there's gonna be this underlying loss of attrition that we're inevitably going to lose to like contractors or just society, right? That are like, hey, this isn't for me. I'm going to get out and move on with my life, right? It makes sense. Like, there's going to be really talented people that get out and do other things.
We talked about
out because that's
Mac and Wade are two like really good examples.
Well, Mac's an idiot. Wade's okay, So that is for the podcast.
Yeah, Mac's an idiot is for the podcast.
Yeah.
# Mac's an idiot.
Babe, make the shirt.
I love him to death. He was in my wedding.
Oh,
I've also never met a single person that like doesn't absolutely love Mac.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right. Anyway, we've already made this long enough for Amanda to edit. So it sounds like
we got 3 episodes.
It felt like we were roughly on the same page for what we would fix, is that like talent management, but not what the Air Force is selling us now. So
that sounds fun.
We've been talking for 100 hours.
Yep.
And I didn't drink anything other than military special.
Amanda, don't act like you're not used to this.
I know. Well,
all right. So Chad,
actually by now I've
we already talked about leave.
Room.
So, all right. Hey, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Hey,
the reason that we're successful is
tastes like in that King Ranch, the mesquite.
Hey, I'll almost do another solo military special night just for the fact that you guys came on with us, because we would not be successful without the support of my friends that will come on and share their opinions, mostly unabridged.
I hope you know, Clayton, how much I enjoy the podcast. It's fun to, play on Facebook and entertain myself while the girls are screaming at me because they love their mother more than more than me. So, it's a good time. And I appreciate you guys putting on the podcast because it is a lot of fun, and all the Facebook commentary is quite enjoyable. And I'm just glad that you and Chad have, made amends for the fact that you sold him out, and that Amanda is the only person that cared about him.
This is a very lopsided friendship.
You're right. We appreciate the shit out of both of you. Thank you so much. What do you got, old lady?
Nothing. Let's wrap it up with some advice for 2023. This is our very first podcast.
For 2023, slow down, listen, and grow. Having the quickest answer isn't always the right thing to do, but slowing down, maybe having the right answer is better than having the quickest answer.
I like that.
So listen to the people that you work with, listen to the people that are underneath you, and listen to the people that you consider mentors. That's really how you're going to grow in 2023.
So kind of the you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason rationale.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Mule, what do you got for us?
Take care of yourself, and focus on your inner circle, whether that's friends, family. Everybody is replaceable. Work really hard to develop the talent to replace yourself, and invest in other people, because it's only through the development of other people that we continue to raise the standard of, getting better every day. Those interpersonal relationships like we have with each other is what really makes everything better. It makes your daily job better. It makes your outlook on life better. And if you don't invest in each other, it's just a machine, right? But it's through that investment in each other that it makes it fun. It makes it enjoyable, and it's how we develop each other that we get better.
Mentor all, vector some. My advice, what I've seen recently from subordinates, as we go through the process, is that they're very worried with the people around them, but they're not so focused on the things that they can do for themselves, right? There is literally no substitute for effort or experience. So work your ass off. People notice it. Thank you for both of you guys. Truthfully, you got no benefit from the act of talking to me. You had to drink military special, which is a problem. You had to be a friend of mine, which is a problem. And I am
Chad.
so thankful for both of you. Thank you for letting me rope you into this military special podcast. Chad, you're the victim here, even though you are my best friend.
Supposedly.
Still.
Yeah, somehow I'm already hungover, and I haven't even gone to bed yet.
So we don't get another letter. Did I meet the requirements?
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you have any of that King
No,
Ranch over there?
no.
I didn't.
Well, you
No,
went off.
it's still
You went
over
off
here.
screen a couple
There's
times.
not even.
so
I was like, I didn't even know where it was at.
I had tabs on him the entire time. Yeah. You
I
did
have
it.
to trust Amanda. I think I trust Amanda more than Clayton. So
Since Chad was the greatest victim, Chad, is the bet satisfied?
it is satisfied. You do not have to do another military special. My word.
We hashtag made it right.
Till the next
Hashtag
day.
made it right.
First time anyone on this podcast has been satisfied, right, babe?
Hey.
Hashtag till the next bet.
So thank you guys for listening to the Whiskey Tango Chaos podcast. We appreciate all of the listens. If you really enjoy what you listen to here, hit us with a like.
Tell your friends, tell your coworkers.
Absolutely. And hit us with whiskeytangochaos.com if you want to find our merch. Hashtag defund the commissary. Got to be our best-selling shirt. No, that's the one.
Hashtag go blue.
Go
Hey.
blue.
Anything that you hit us with in the comments can become a shirt.
It can, it absolutely can. But thank you for joining the conversation online. It's always that's where we have a lot of fun. It really is. So
Thank you guys for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good night. Cheers.
cheers.